is the way.
Welcome to Hold Maneuver Podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Mike. We're two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves in Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening and/or watching, in this sometimes short-form Star Wars podcast, we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away.
Why did the Mandalorian keep winning races?
Because it was the way.
He drove the Beskar.
About appropriate reaction.
Yeah, Sylvie's like that joke.
Sylvie was done.
She's heckling you now.
Yeah. Well, I deserve it.
It's okay, Sylvie. I wrote the joke. But yeah, this week we are back for episode XL, episode 40 of Hold a Maneuver. We're going to be talking about The Mandalorian season 3, episode 3, chapter 19, all of the numbers, The Convert. This week we have returning guest Stanford Clark.
Welcome.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks.
And then new guest, but long-time friend, Michael Tirona.
Welcome, and thanks for being here, both of you.
Yeah. So this is the tale of two Michaels.
Again.
So
Happens a couple times.
This should get confusing really quick if I don't state who I'm actually talking to.
Like I said, I could be the humanoid.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, so this week we're going to be talking about the new episode of Mando. But before we get into that, just going to talk briefly about one news article I saw. It's not so much like a news story, other than it was kind of just Damon Lindelof pondering whether or not he actually really wants to make a Star Wars movie. So last week I talked about our friend Ralph, who's producing a Lost documentary with his buddy Taylor. So I figured this kind of connects to that as well, with Damon Lindelof and Star Wars. But so Damon Lindelof said, I will just say that for reasons that I can't get into on this Sunday morning, on this day, the degree of difficulty is extremely, extremely, extremely high. If it can't be great, it shouldn't exist. That's all I'll say. Because I have the same association with it as you do, which is it's the first movie I saw sitting in my dad's lap, 4 years old, May of 1977. I think it's possible that sometimes when you hold something in such high reverence and esteem, you start to get in the kitchen and just go, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating. We'll just leave it at that point. So I kind of see where he's getting from it, from two different angles. Like they're like, if like I love Star Wars a lot, obviously, but if I also ever had the chance to remake Back to the Future or something like that, I wouldn't do that because I feel like I hold that movie at such a high pedestal that I don't feel like there's anything that I could do to add to that world or anything at the point. What do you guys all think? Mike Tirona, and then Stanford, and then Mike Swarn.
I think it shows a lot of self-control on his part, that because I'm sure if he expressed interest in wanting to do one, it probably wouldn't be very long before Lucasfilm or Disney reached out to him with his pedigree. But so yeah, that takes a lot of self-control to say, like, I love this thing so much, but maybe I should just be an enjoyer of it instead of contributing to it. But with that said, if he did decide to do one, then I would get really excited about it, because then that means he thought of something incredible that he thought was worth adding to the mythos.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Stanford?
Yeah, I'm with Michael. Can you imagine the pressure too if you were tasked with writing a Star Wars movie? And sure, not everything's perfect, but still I think there'd be a tremendous amount of pressure, whether he's getting it from Lucasfilm or whether he's putting it on himself, so, and then also the quote just made me think and hope that we're going to get some news about an actual Star Wars film. from Star Wars Celebration next month. Anyway, maybe that's just wishful thinking, but that's what it made me think of.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
Yeah.
Soren?
I respect what he's saying. I feel if I was in the same boat, I'd feel that way, but I'm egotistical enough to be like, no, I'm going to do it. But at the same time, if you have that deep passion for anything, it's going to be better than some hot hand who's making stuff now is going to make, like, in my opinion. Look at Favreau and Filoni, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, so if you have the passion for Star Wars and you like it that much and you don't want to do it because of that, it might be the reason to do it.
That's true too. Yeah, I can. There's definitely two like points of view you can see that from, like where like Tony Gilroy with Andor, he has like no irreverence for Star Wars whatsoever, and then
it's one of the better shows. It's one of the best
and then
movies.
produced Andor. We'll be talking about Andor a little bit later in this episode too. But yeah, you can see just kind of like the two different viewpoints of where that comes from, because you want stuff that you like to be handled by people that also have some kind of joy from also doing it, because it, like anytime you don't necessarily have to have like read like all of the comics. If you're playing, say you get cast as Superman or Spider-Man or whatever, you don't have to have read all of the comics of that character.
You have to care. That's all I want.
Yeah,
like you have to care.
Yeah, have to care somewhat about the characters that you're either portraying or showing their world. So yeah, all that to be said, that I had thought they had announced, or that it was rumored, that Damon Lindelof was working on something for Star Wars, but like all the Star Wars movies have been in such kind of like this like up and down scope of what's happening with them, what's not happening with them. It seems like
stock tactics.
Yeah, it seems like like Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie is like the only one that's actually still probably most likely.
And that one has me concerned because he didn't know Natalie Portman was in Star Wars. Like,
it was going to be a Padme prequel before episode 1, and they're going to de-age
make her
Portman, so
10
she
years old
like,
or whatever.
Yeah, basically just use unused footage from Leon the Professional.
Yeah,
just have her in there like that. But yeah, it's so all of that to be said, we'll now get into talking about this week's episode of The Mandalorian, which was called Chapter 19, The Convert. So in this one, The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 19, it was directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and it premiered on Disney Plus today, the day that we're recording this episode, March 15th of 2023. And a brief synopsis of it was: on Coruscant, former Imperials find amnesty in the New Republic. So, yeah.
Very vague.
Yes.
I know. It couldn't be more vague. Really.
Yeah, so for this one, what are some of your guys' like initial thoughts on the episode? Tirona, Stanford, and then Soren.
I found it refreshing. I really was not expecting an episode largely on Coruscant, and that was a lot of fun. It helps that the content of that part of the story was good, and I found it entertaining, and it brings it back to obviously events in season 1, and it makes you wonder like what's coming next. So it brings in something interesting new that I really wasn't expecting. And so for that reason, I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I thought it was, I was entertained the whole time. It was kind of a longer episode than they normally are. I think I'm mostly just surprised by everything, because my guess last week was that they were that much of the episode was going to be, if not the entire thing, on Mandalore. And that didn't last long, and then we got kind of an episode that for me felt very reminiscent of Andor, and I think we'll be getting into that. But all just cool stuff, surprising, and it was slow, but I'm not complaining about that, and fast at the same time. you know,
Mhm.
for me too. But I thought it was a great episode. I loved it.
Nice.
I
How about
was
you?
surprising for me because I didn't expect the Coruscant stuff, and it's just got a weird. It's been weird because they set up all this stuff in episode 1, what he's going to do, and then it's just like boom, 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 we're knocking it out. Like I got to get the droid fixed. Oh, we don't care about that anymore. I got to go to the mines of Mandalore. Oh, we're done there. Like it's just real quick his mission. So it was cool to go back. I forgot about the doctor, and I forgot about what's her face, Elia Kane there. Like
Oh yeah.
I was like, who are these people? And I just completely couldn't remember.
Yeah. It's that's sometimes that's why I still watch like those recap things at the beginning. Like I know that some people skip them because sometimes it'll give away. Because sometimes the recaps are like they show you like this little snippet of a scene. You're like,
Mhm.
that's like why'd they show that little innocuous scene of a clip from this part of an episode? What is that gonna have to do with this? Sometimes that can give away some kind of a surprise like later on in it, but I don't know, I still watch them anyways.
I'm with you,
But
Mark. I watch it too.
yeah. But yeah, I liked that we got to see Dr. Pershing come back in just because like I remember like back when we had like first saw him like way back in season 1. They're like, oh, what's this guy doing? And people noticed he had like the cloning like uh sigil like on his uniform there. So like we knew he had something to do with Kamino and with like the whole cloning and whatnot there. And a lot of, I mean, there's been tons of theories like since then that he's probably partially or mostly responsible for the whole somehow Palpatine returned. um, and
That's what I felt this whole episode was like, oh, there we go. It's confirmed.
yeah, especially because in like we'll try to talk about it a little bit, but like in this, because he's like talking about like how the like the original way, like the uh Kaminoans.
Yeah, they say it a bunch.
Yeah.
Kaminoans. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, the Bad Batch's mom and dad's. With like how like that was basically like one strand of DNA just duplicated, and like what he was trying to develop was taking two different
Splicing.
strands of two strands and like putting the best parts of it, which is seemingly kind of what we eventually I'm assuming is technically what Rey is meant to be for all intents and purposes, but by the time of what we find out for her in Rise of Skywalker, uh, with how she's meant to be like kind of a clone of Mr. Sheev Palpatine himself. So it's interesting to see. And I need to catch up on Bad Batch, but I've also heard that like the episodes that are playing each week of that at the same time as Mandalore are kind of they're set like many like decades apart, but they're like storyline wise they're kind of jiving pretty well with one another with everything that's going on with them.
Yeah, I'm behind on that as well. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's the week that they played too. It got me behind, and I haven't been able to catch back up. But so with like kind of us talking about this, I figured we'd basically cover the Din and bo-katan part first, which is basically kind of like bookends
mhm.
the episode, and then go into this episode of The Mandalorian brought to you by Andor with Dr. Cushing. So from there, basically the episode starts with Din recovering basically after almost drowning in the living, ironically in the living waters of Mandalore.
Just kind of fell.
Yeah, it was almost the dying waters of Mandalore.
Yeah, the murderous waters of.
And then so with that, Bo-Katan's just waiting there, chilling out, waiting for him to wake back up.
I thought he woke up in the last episode
Yeah, I thought he did too.
because that's when the porg soup came into context.
Was it? Or I don't remember. Or no, yeah, because the end of the episode it was them in the water, and that's when the mythosaur shows up. And
wait,
cut to
Because
black.
they talked before he went in the water, didn't? So the pork soup was after she rescued him from the robot thing.
Yeah. So yeah, like with that, wakes up, and I thought this was also kind of interesting too, in that she's kind of testing him to see if he saw the mythosaur as well, and when he basically gives an inclination that he did, she doesn't tell him that she did.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you guys think about that? Like that she's kind of like withholding that info a little bit, and not being like outwardly just like, oh, I saw the mythosaur.
Mm-hmm. I feel it's interesting because it's a duality where she's like, maybe she doesn't trust her own judgment, but she also doesn't want him to believe in it. So it was like there's this weird duality with the religious side that's been fascinating to me, because she didn't believe any of it, and all of a sudden, oh my God, this huge thing is real. Maybe I didn't see it. He's not going to know he saw it. We're going to try and just play my narrative, and so that was just interesting to me, that choice. Quick choice, but
Yeah. How about you, Tirona?
Yeah, it felt like she was withholding it because she was in conflict with herself.
Mhm.
She didn't really know if she wanted to be like, "Oh, you didn't see that? Oh, it was a mythosaur. Like that's crazy." um, or she was trying to she was just trying to process it and take it in, and just be like, "All right, well, that changes some things that I know, but let's move on for now."
Yeah, and I think she's trying to figure out kind of whose side she's really on, or if she, she. It's like, I think it's as you already mentioned. It's like there's a trust issue going on between, the two of them, but then also I think she's still trying to decide what she wants to be. And we'll talk about this more about at the end of the episode, but I wasn't necessarily convinced about what she's if the way she's acting is if the way she's really feeling.
right. It's hard with the helmets.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I'm now wondering if we don't see Katie Sackhoff's face for the rest of the season.
That's the interesting question.
I know. That's the question. I was wondering the same thing.
Because I guess I also hadn't realized up until this episode that she's getting like basically co-billing with Pedro Pascal, like as like the top billing for the show, and then because then it lists everybody else that's co-starring in it. So I thought that's kind of interesting that she's more or less a series regular with him and Grogu. Now, granted, Grogu's like 8 different people with controlling a puppet and making the voices and whatnot.
He didn't get thrown this episode.
Yeah, or do some sweet backflips or front flips.
Yeah.
But I did like some of the stuff though with Grogu, like during like this, like the whole like dog fight, like the ships and stuff, where he's got his like classic move now where he just presses the button and like the dome goes over. He's like, all right, I'm gonna go to my safe space now.
That's right. I'm out.
I'll be back when everything is all
R5's getting tossed
good.
around.
Oh yeah, like the not anti-gravity, but he's just like floating with like the 0 G's. But yeah, so like with that, you said like she seemed like she was kind of like in disbelief about it like being real, or everything she's been claiming and whatnot. So with this, after that, like there's the whole dogfight with like all of these like TIE interceptors. Like we think that there's only like 3 of them at first, and then more show up, and then more show up. There's this whole like cool bit there too with Din basically jumping out of her ship and kind of like free falling before he basically like waits almost until he gets to the platform.
It's just casual
to put on his jet. I was like, maybe do that a little bit,
a little earlier.
I thought he was just gonna like just swoop right into the
ship, like slow down just enough.
Yeah.
Although that was kind of interesting too. That was definitely CG, most likely with him getting into the ship, because
Mhm.
there was like this weird, it's like unnatural movement from him getting
Yeah.
on the ground into it.
Mhm.
Which I mean, I was like, unless Din is now a Jedi and has some like weird movement, force power is somewhat weird going on there. But yeah, I definitely think he should have turned on the jetpack a little bit earlier, just because I felt like he was gonna break his leg or something. If
Well, yeah, I mean, they kind of
if the-
nerfed him this season. He can't kill anything when he's shooting it. He trips and falls in the living waters. Basically, almost dies twice in one episode, and so then that was kind of cool. Give him a little redeeming swagger that we all love about him.
yeah. I liked that whole scene too, like between like him and Bo taking down all the TIE well, thinking that they took down all the TIE interceptors, and then they bomb her castle. Basically. So I guess she's done, just
Just
brooding in her
sitting there on the throne.
So RIP to sitting like this.
She can do that on
for
a rock somewhere. We don't know.
just being pissed off. Sitting
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
But yeah, so like with that's interesting too, because she says something like, that's like way too many TIE interceptors to be just like
A
to like a
warlord.
crime lord or a warlord. So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be like showing maybe like the first signs of like the First Order.
That's what I was
I'm
thinking.
kind of like building up, because we'll get to it in a little bit, but kind of like the New Republic itself is less like the Rebel Alliance and more seemingly like a cult, maybe like Allison Mack would want to join.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a little small little reference for you there in this Star Wars podcast. But when they get to the planet with the rest of the clan and the covert that Din is a part of, or will be a part of, he presents the armor with a sample of the living waters as proof of his redemption, and then she puts it into what to me seemed kind of like, I don't remember the exact name of it, but from like the Harry Potter movies, so like when you pour like the memory into
the memory thing.
The pensieve.
Yeah, the pensieve. It seemed like she was just pouring like the living waters into like a Mando pensieve. She's like, oh, there you go. Or it's just had the right pH balance, and that's why it showed in the colors like it did. 'Cause I know we were all like wondering like how
you
is he
gonna
gonna prove that he
Quite easy.
went in the water?
Mhm.
Other than Bo saying that he had been in the water, but and
I wanted
also,
this scene to be more explosive, personally.
well,
like-
it seemed like Vizsla was kind of PO'd that he was now just like back into it, as well as Bo is now in it too. I mean, you couldn't see his face. I'm assuming if we ever see Vizsla's face, it's going to be Jon Favreau.
Probably.
He's
Or Robert
doing the
Downey
voice.
Jr.
That would just be kind of random. But yeah, so like with this, it's basically like that's like the entirety of like the Din and Bo story in
Yeah,
this episode.
it's so quick. It's just
it was basically like we said, like bookended the episode. So it was interesting what we did get with that, and I'm wondering like where it'll go from there, especially now with Bo essentially being a part.
yeah, she
of
baptized herself.
Yeah,
Unknowingly.
This episode is very culty. So you got Din and Bo in the Mando cult, and then you got Dr. Pershing and his buddies in the New Republic cult. So and then like the last thing we saw of like this storyline before we get into the Coruscant storyline was that it was just basically Bo looking off at like the Mythosaur Beskar skull on the wall, brooding again and pondering life. So from there,
can't tell. Can't see the faces.
We then leave this episode of The Mandalorian to head back into the world of Andor, or that's what it seemed like. they definitely used a lot of the same sets, it felt like, because
Why
there
not?
was like where Pershing was like working seemed like the same exact office area that Cyril had been working in
I
Andor.
thought that we were going to see Cyril in this.
Like a 40
I know, like
plus
exactly.
years
Like,
older.
when Kane was walking into the doctor's like a ward or whatever he was going through, I was like, is that going to be Cyril? Like, are you kidding me?
That would have been kind of funny if he was just like a 60 plus year old version of Cyril. And he's now like the supreme manager of that
Yeah, it's
that floor, and he's like,
the
oh, here you
assistant
go.
to the regional manager.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been kind of interesting. But this whole thing too is interesting because like they're not really in jail, but they kind of are in jail.
You
Like,
don't know they're in jail.
yeah, like they don't have identities anymore other than like NG453 or blah 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 blah. My wife made a joke. She's like, are they just like numbers that get called out of bingo? Because she's like, one was like G60 and one was like 054.
Yeah.
But now, what did you guys think of this whole thing? It was kind of like this whole like kind of rehabilitation that the I guess what became of the Rebel Alliance is now the New Republic, and what they're essentially doing with members of what used to be like the Empire and Imperials. Kind of, it's not like a one for one, but kind of like similar to well, at least I guess like in the world of Marvel, like how like some like Hydra agents were like then like used like within like building like the like shield and whatnot, and that and then like in the real world with like not necessarily outside of like the Nuremberg trials, but like with like former Nazis, like not necessarily being sentenced to death, but like being repositioned in like different roles and whatnot, and being rehabilitated. What did you guys think of like this whole kind of idea of what they were working with in this Tirona, then Stanford, then Soren?
Yeah, it was really interesting, especially the real world comparisons that you just mentioned. One thing that kind of surprised me the most about it was just kind of how dehumanizing the experience felt for the people that were being like reintegrated. Like you were saying, they're just being called by their numbers. They're identified by their pins and uniforms completely differently than everyone else that's just part of a republic. So it kind of feels like not unintentionally they're being kind of shamed, like they're given a scarlet letter for what they did in the past, even though that they're trying to bring them into it and make them feel like they're part of building this new, better galaxy. It felt like an interesting approach, and I really am not going to be surprised when it probably eventually or inevitably leads to some first order shenanigans.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it seems like the New Republic is just kind of messed up, and I thought it was interesting that they spent so much time on it. As I kind of mentioned briefly, I didn't get bored. It just seemed like this has got to be important. I think they just wanted to get the point across that, what's going on, and it's a combination too of I guess building up the mystery, like what really are everybody's motives. Pershing, I think, has the purest motives, right? Like, you think he seems pretty, like, everything seemed pretty straightforward. It's Elia or Elia. How do we say her name?
Kane.
Elia.
My last name.
Yeah, perfect. That, I mean, doesn't she have like the greatest like just mean look too? She just, particularly near the end. And like, what's her deal? I mean, I'm guessing, or I guess I'm surmising that she's gonna go off. She's doing something from Moff Gideon. That's what I'm guessing. But again, I also feel like the First Order is going to be starting with her, too, or she's going to be first to sign up for it. At least, again, this just stuff was going through my mind. I go, well, it's going to be fun to see what happens.
Yeah, speaking like I've talked about a little bit, but like speaking of like Andor, like she gave me like hardcore Deidre
Oh,
vibes.
absolutely.
Maybe Deidre's her mom. Because in the galaxy that's so big, it's actually so small because everybody is
Yeah.
related.
But they get space biscuits though. But is it Soylent?
Oh,
is it
yeah.
Soylent Green, or is it some nefarious thing?
Oh yeah,
It's possible.
It's just a space biscuit.
yeah, that was interesting.
Red or yellow.
Yeah,
Matrix.
Yeah.
that there's been plenty of food in this season of Mando though, because I'm wondering if they're gonna at Celebration this year in the UK, if they're gonna be selling some pog soup,
Pog soup,
some of these biscuits,
space biscuits.
Sure. You'll see it at Disney soon too.
Yeah,
maybe
Galaxy's Edge is gonna have some.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what the food was that they had made in Andor, but I remember like there's something. Yeah, or you could have that cereal. Yeah, cereal. But yeah, this should be kind of interesting with like all this different food that they do have there. Now, I'm still waiting for them to like have Batu show up in an episode of Mando, because I feel like if any Star Wars project is gonna have Batu on it, it's gonna be
Mando. Yeah,
Mandalorian. Especially now that like Mando and Grogu are walking around Batu, both in Florida
and in California.
Yeah. Sylvie
So
loves
happy.
it.
Sylvie's stoked.
I'm just gonna let her go.
I can't hear it, so she's doing something.
All right, cool. Yeah, she's doing the Sylvie siren, where she's trying to match the tune of the sirens that drove by outside.
Nice.
But yeah, like, and the costumes they have for Din Djarin and then like the robots they have for Grogu at Batu at Galaxy's Edge, it's like you just kind of assume Pedro Pascal is like walking around Galaxy's Edge in that, with like how like
He might be. We don't know what he does in his spare time.
That would be kind of funny if they do eventually post a picture of like of Mandalorian at Galaxy's Edge, because they just did post the other day that Katie Sackhoff was there, going around Galaxy's Edge. So that was,
I saw that she was posing with the Mando actor, right? And yeah.
But like this, so like this whole thing with Dr. Pershing and Elia here too was, at first I thought she was being like truthful about it and everything, but
it's like it was her job was to suss him out. Yeah,
like she was, but it was almost like she was playing like a long con too, where like she's definitely not on like the up and up. She's definitely not with like the New Republic. There's something going on with that. I'm assuming whatever she's doing is also probably related to those like TIE interceptors that were going after Din and bo-katan earlier in the episode too. But we have like their like whole kind of adventure like on the train, which was like another thing that we said kind of reminded us of Andor, like that whole kind of area in Coruscant that like another food item too is like those like light up like popsicles or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Which the only thing about those
are great.
Were those practical?
They were miming, I think.
Yeah, because I was like, I can't tell if they're actually like putting a popsicle in their mouth or not. But
it was quite awkward when the doctor put it in his mouth.
Oh yeah, they had that long shot of it,
and it was like so slow.
Yeah, well, because that's the only reason that I think maybe that they weren't practical, is like, because if he knew like how big the popsicle was or like where it was going to be, probably would have like just ate it like a normal person.
They were quite glowy.
Yeah, but yeah, there you go. There's another thing you can sell it at Galaxy's Edge, especially at night. People will buy it because it lights up, just purely because it lights up. I mean, that's half the stuff that's sold at Disneyland is stuff that just lights up, because then you can wear it at night and it lights up.
That's true.
It'd be like little tiny lightsabers, but you can eat them.
They already made those not a while ago. I remember those in stores, like little sucker lightsabers.
Oh yeah, I remember those. But yeah, like this whole, and then this is where it felt more like Andor too, because they put on like their costumes, and like they put like with his like high like Cassian Andor coat collar that he puts up, and then they're like basically going on their mission to get to the Imperial shuttle. That was cool too, and they almost have like Jedi like timing as far as jumping off of that train too, because they jumped and they landed squarely on
A
what looked
mattress.
like a mattress.
That's what made me think it was more like it was a plan to like
Yeah,
suss this
well,
guy out.
Yeah, like she had said she had done that before, like because that's where she got the biscuits. But that's like super fine tuned like timing.
Oh yeah.
To jump with how fast that train was going to make sure you land on that. But I liked like these like whole like establishing shots and like these overhead shots of like this like yard with like these basically desanctioned
That's
yeah, like the Imperial storm trips.
That's one thing I've liked in the Disney since they took it over is you've seen the wreckage and you've seen stuff just being on the ground, not just always just fighting. You see the aftermath, like the Death Star in the water there, and Jakku being full of all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's just a cool aesthetic to see.
With that too, like a lot more of like the inner atmospheric kind of like dogfight kind of ship fightings that we've seen like now in like Andor and this and the sequel trilogy. Was there anything that stood out to you, Tirona or Stanford, like within like this kind of whole like kind of side quest that the two of them were going on, and anything like at any point like did you like, oh, okay, she's definitely up to no good here, like at like a specific point?
Yeah, I felt like I wanted her to not be setting him up, but just the way she was acting and everything, she was just trying to be so buddy with him so obviously. And so it really makes me wonder where the story's going with her. I mean, probably obviously somewhere First Order-ish or back to Gideon, but I really wonder like what she's up to, that she's trying to get him both in trouble but still interested in his research and wants to find a way for him to continue that research, and was like even egging him on to do so. So I really wonder where this is going to go, and might be a little more exciting to me than what's going on with Mando itself in the show, only because I have no idea, and this is something totally new and interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought the relationship was so interesting, and again, because so much time was spent on it, it just makes me think that there's a lot more to come. At least I would think. I also wonder what kind of shape Pershing's going to be in. Is he dead now, or is he just is he brain dead, or that looks pretty gnarly. Yeah, he's flayed.
The only thing I can think of is they needed that lab equipment, like someone who, if it's Moff Gideon or someone else, needed that equipment, and he was used to identify it, and then that was
yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and then I didn't really notice what she put in there, but I noticed like she put something into it like that like changed to like the color of it to red, like while he was doing that. Did you guys?
Oh, she turned up the intensity. I thought that's all it was.
Yeah,
I don't know,
that's
maybe...
what I thought. She had turned it up to 11. She was really, at least that's what it looked like to me.
It was supposed to be a brain tickle, and she turned it into something else.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and like I don't like the only other time we had seen like the like mind flayer stuff was just in I think it was like season 1, because it was like originally there
remember.
with like when we first saw like Moff Gideon, like when he was showing up in Navarro there. But I liked that, like that whole scene with him on the ship there. Now, did anybody roll their eyes at all when Dr. Pershing told the Mon Calamarian that it was a trap that
I
he
didn't
was
catch it,
lured
so
into?
Oh, I caught
I didn't
it.
catch that either.
I smiled.
I did not catch that.
I thought well
Yeah.
played, frankly. I mean, I thought it was funny. It made me
I was
laugh.
I thought
I was
that
like, oh,
was awkward costuming that they had. Like, I don't know, it just looked too
oh,
fake. Like
Yeah,
the
it
Mon
looked
Calamari.
extra fake, extra shiny.
It might have been the lighting, just because it was like such a stark lighting set,
Mhm.
and we're not really used to seeing like
right.
that race of alien like in that kind of lighting.
Yeah, we're used to a grainy video. It's a trap.
Yeah, I did think that was kind of funny though, that like he's like, but it was a trap. He's like, oh, and then that guy's like telling me he found the whole experience quite refreshing when he had the mind flaying
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Of course you did. You don't remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see like what comes of Dr. Pershing now after that, because if that is just basically wiping out his memory, that doesn't seem like he's going to be of any kind of help.
Well, look what
at-
they had him doing. Just cataloging, like data entry. They don't want people thinking. Like they want you mindless droning.
Yeah.
So
And again, so reminiscent of Andor, of course, but also again, just thinking, man, this is. I wonder what other parts of the New Republic are kind of are treating people like this.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
And like the other thing there too is that I'm wondering like how much of this is like repurposed from, because they were going to do that Rangers of the New Republic show that I'm assuming was going to be like led by Cara Dune.
she could still come back. You never know. Maybe a different actress, but she can still come back.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be mad if it was a different person playing the character. But like,
Part of me thinks Carl Weathers there knows more than he let on. Like that's just, I'm thinking back to like how quickly he was like, Cara Dune's over here and Gideon got trained. It's like he might know something, and that was just his quick way of like brushing it off. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's overthinking it probably, but because there's something about his character, like he can't be Mr. Good Guy all of a sudden, because that wasn't his MO the first 2 seasons.
Yeah. I'm just wondering like maybe like how much of maybe they're incorporating of like what they had planned to do, like almost like this seems like it could have been like an episode of the like Rangers of the New Republic thing in that, and then it was just like kind of inserted in as like a backdoor pilot like within an episode of The Mandalorian. But the other thing I noticed in here too is I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed like where Dr. Pershing was kind of giving like that his like TED talk in the beginning of the episode, which I liked how they did that too, where it's like the Star Wars equivalent of like a jumbotron. It was just like an enlarged hologram of him above himself. So if he had like
It was like
crappy
Marva.
seat, yeah, if he had the crappy seats, you could still see him. I'm pretty sure that's the same place that Anakin and Palpatine were watching the opera in
Most
Revenge of
likely.
the Sith, or it looked very similar to a very similar structure and like exterior to where they were watching that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I did like seeing a little bit more of Coruscant post Return of the Jedi in this, or just kind of seemed like a prospering city again. It like even so much that it like seemed different to like what we had saw of Coruscant like during the prequels with like how it was then.
One thing that still amazes me is how everyone in Coruscant is just like fat, dumb, and happy and ignorant to everything going around.
I know that was
Just-
interesting too, and telling, of
Like what is going on in Coruscant.
Yeah.
Like you guys just don't care.
and
Yeah.
how the new, how the Empire forms again, basically,
Mhm.
Yeah, like those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it.
yeah.
And like, because that guy said almost something that was almost exactly verbatim to, I don't remember if it was in Obi-Wan Kenobi or in Andor, but remember there was like someone like that was like, like super well off in one of those two series that said something like, I can't tell the difference between this sect and that sect, or like where I am in it. It's just I just try to keep my mouth shut and stay out of it or whatever.
Mhm.
Which I think it was Kenobi, because I think it was like somebody that was at like a party on Alderaan there. But I just thought that it just shows like how like the certain types of people in the galaxy act the same way, whether it's in this era of like the Mandalorian, or if it's post Revenge of the Sith, or if it's close to like A New Hope. I just thought that was kind of interesting overall with that. But so like with this episode, we had the bo-katan stuff with Din Djarin and Grogu, and then we had this with Pershing and Kane in the episode. Where do you think the next episode goes from here, going into episode 4 next week? And then was there like anything that we haven't mentioned yet that you wanted to make sure that we do? Oh, I know with you, Mike Soren, there was a thing that you had said something with like the doctor with his genes.
I saw some post. I didn't watch the video where they were hinting that the doctor used his genes to do something. So I was like, did he use his genes, Grogu's genes, and Palpatine's genes to make the Palpatines, or was it like to make Snoke, to make someone? Because the point was like, if you look at his ear, it looked like he took a chunk out to do something with it. But that's all I really saw, and it was just like, is that what he's going to be used for? Is clone bait now? Like,
or cut to a flashback where he saves Kino Loy before he jumps from
Kino doesn't jump. He's still out there.
Yeah, because he gets taken in so that he can be made into a Snoke clone. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Either Kino didn't jump or he just kind of fell off.
Andy Serkis becomes Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
But was there anything else that that we hadn't discussed yet, Mike Tirona, that you wanted to bring up before we close out?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where the storyline with bo-katan goes. Whether because they did tell her that she can take off her helmet and leave this cult anytime she wants to. So it's going to be interesting to see if she wants to, or if she decides to stay in, and if she's just going to be joining Jin on these adventures now. Also, one little thing was during the episode last week when he fell in, I definitely thought he got dragged in. I assumed, so it's a little funny to me that he just tripped in and he didn't like knock himself out or anything, but he just like let himself fall that entire time.
Last episode.
It tripped into the water.
Yeah, we were split 50-50 last episode. Mythosaur pulled him in versus tripped and fell.
Yeah. I was wondering the same thing. Yeah.
How about you, Stanford?
That's part of the nerfing that I was talking about. It's like he seems so clumsy this season so far. Like,
that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
Was there anything that stood out to you that we hadn't talked about yet, Stanford?
No, we've hit it all. I think for me, the question number one is, I guess I got two. What are we going to learn more about what Kane is trying to do, and then also I just so interested just to see what bo-katan, what's going on with her now that again we already talked about. Her castle's gone. She's hanging out with some serious cult folks, and what's she gonna do?
Yeah, I think where we're going is you're gonna get a bo-katan struggle episode where she's trying to figure out her path. There might be more interactions with the armorer because I think they know each other, and I want them to know each other and have more interactions, I should say. And
Yeah, I still think it's eventually going to be revealed that the armor was like part of Darth Maul's sect of Maul DeLoreans, because like the Maul DeLoreans had like the horns on their helmets. So either she took somebody else's helmet or she was part of that sect of Maul DeLoreans. And that was actually what they called them too. They called them Maul DeLoreans. I remember there was like this whole like hashtag like on Twitter for it that
Nice.
had like the Darth Maul horns on it. So we now see what happens when you accidentally baptize yourself in the
yep.
the living waters.
Yeah,
So
as far as the
don't
Kane
accidentally
story
baptize
goes,
yourself.
I feel like I want them to do more of it, but part of me just feels like it's going to be an episode where she shows up next to someone and you're just like, oh, that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see how this episode could be a lot of like table setting for
A
in
pipe
the future.
episode.
Yeah, I liked how much of like a world building and kind of character development episode it was. As the internet likes to do, plenty of people have complaining about how little of Mando was in an episode of The Mandalorian.
That's why I had that debate in our group chat there about which picture to use.
Oh yeah, when you're watching this on YouTube, you will see what episode or what art we ended up choosing for it. So that is no longer a mystery to you if you're watching this. But yeah, so yeah, next week we'll get episode 4 of this show. I enjoyed this one. I liked all of what we saw in it.
Only thing I don't like is the baby noises Grogu's making. It just bothers me to have him make cooing noise. I don't know why it does. It just does. I don't know.
I respect that they are doing the brave thing to eventually have him talk and ruin this like baby illusion. So I respect that, but yeah, it's a bold choice
because it's too human for me. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We'll see. We already know that Yoda's the only weird one that talked the way that he did because Yaddle just sounds like Bryce Dallas Howard. So
Yoda might have had a stroke. We just don't know.
I guess we don't want to hold that against him if that happened to him.
Who knows? Grogu could just be like, "Way, this is."
Exactly.
Like, Yoda was so strong on the Force that it gave him a speech impediment. And on that note, that's gonna do it for our recap of The Mandalorian season 3, episode 3, The Convert. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of it, and we're looking forward to episode 4 next week. This episode, you can leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice if it allows you to do so. Helps us out a lot. You can find the show on social media at HoldoPod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then you can find me and Mike Soren on Instagram and Twitter there too. And then
I'm there. I'm somewhere.
Mike Tirona, where can they find you online, or where would you like people to find you online?
You can find me at Instagram and TikTok at Tirona M.
Nice. And then how about you, Stanford?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I also have a Instagram. Same things, Stanford at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie one too, at Movies PAP, which stands for Past and Present.
You can also find Stanford at Animation Fascination with me.
Yeah.
And
I've
then,
never heard of it.
Me either.
We don't talk about that show here.
I don't think Mike Soren's ever been on it. I don't know.
We've never done a crossover episode or two.
No, I do. I think we've been mind flayed. But our editor is Baxter, and you can find him just at that on Instagram and Twitter.
At that?
Yeah, at that. I'm sure there's probably an Instagram or Twitter account that is just
Mm-hmm.
that
Probably.
at that.
Probably verified too.
You can email us at holdapod@gmail.com. But as always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Oh dear, thank the maker.